Unfortunately, since the plastic bag went into effect in 2016, plastic waste from plastic bags has gone up by almost 50%. So you see that was clearly not working. We are not managing all of that at the level we should be, given how much we care about the environment.
Unfortunately, the loophole still in this bill that I see is that we can still have reusable bags coming from China that are not made to be recycled.
My guest today is Kathleen Blakespear, California State Senator. Today she'll explain her new law that bans plastic bags at grocery stores. We also sit down with Heidi Sanborn, Executive Director with National Stewardship Action Council. She'll explain the recycling process in California and discusses the positive changes being made to the system.
There's no way to avoid plastic completely. I mean, we use it in so many things all the time, but we can do our best and we can try to set up our systems so that we produce less of it.
I just want to give people confidence. Most things are getting recycled and the system is going to get better and better. Your recycling matters, and it's going to matter more and more as the system gets more and more refined.
I'm Siyamak. Welcome to California Insider. Kathleen, it's great to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
We want to talk to you about a law that just made, and you were instrumental in passing this. This was your bill, banning plastic bags in California. Can you tell us what this bill is about and what does it do?
Yeah, so when you go to the grocery store, you will be offered, if you did not bring your own reusable bag, you'll be offered a paper bag. So instead of saying, would you like paper or plastic? The question will be, would you like paper? And so the bill eliminates that plastic option.
And why did you introduce this law?
Because plastic is a scourge and it's polluting our planet, and we don't need to have so many plastic bags. The voters actually approved a plastic bag ban in 2016, which was a referendum on something the legislature had passed. So the voters, the plastics industry, wanted to overturn a plastic bag ban, and they took it to the voters and said, hey, do you really want to do this? The voters said yes. But what happened was in the process of that, what was allowed is essentially a loophole where those thinner plastic bags were banned, but thicker plastic bags were considered reusable and recyclable. And so they were still allowed to be distributed. And actually they're being sold. It's not just distributed. They're sold to people who are taking their groceries home. And unfortunately, the bags are not being recycled and they're not being reused. So nowhere in California recycles them, and people largely do not reuse them. So what we see is that they blow around everywhere. They degrade into toxic microplastics in the ocean. They're in our landfills. And in our landfills, they put up a fence to catch the plastic bags. So the fence is not to keep out any other thing who wants to come in or anything. It's the plastic bags blowing around everywhere. And we just know that plastic is a pollutant. It is used for 12 minutes in that plastic bag form, and then it takes hundreds of years to degrade, and we just don't need them. So
people use them for 12 minutes when they get...
That's the average lifespan.
And why doesn't it get recycled?
Because thin film plastic just doesn't have a market. I think, unfortunately, there are lots of thin film plastics too, like they go around shipping containers, this plastic and saran wrap and the plastic that your cereal's in or your crackers. You know, these thin plastics, they just don't have a market. And so we end up with them all in the landfill. All of these different sources of that same type of really thin plastic. And it's not great. I mean, we need to have an alternative for all these different uses. And the good thing is at a grocery store, there is an alternative. It's the paper bag, which on average can last 12 minutes and actually comes from a renewable resource, which is trees. It's a higher chance to get recycled, but also part of my bill requires that the recycled content goes up to 50%. So what's in the bag will actually be recycled as well. So it overall will have a much smaller footprint. Unfortunately, since the plastic bag went into effect in 2016...
It was supposed to ban the thin plastic.
The thin, right, exactly. So since that happened, plastic waste from plastic bags has gone up by almost 50%. So that means that we supposedly banned this one thin thing, but because a thicker one was introduced, plastic bag waste has gone up by 50%. So you see that was clearly not working.
So there was a loophole that they could make it thicker, is that?
Right, exactly, because then it's considered reusable and recyclable. And so there were some studies done of where are all these plastic bags going, and it was a news organization that put trackers like Apple trackers into the plastic bags, and where they ended up going were some were incinerated, some ended up in Asia, and others ended up in the ocean, and none of them ended up recycled.
We're covering California issues, as you know. If you want us to cover the stories that are impacting your day-to-day life in California, reach out to me at siyamak@californiainsider.com. And when you introduced this bill, did you face any opposition?
Well, yes, the plastics industry. The plastics industry came out really strongly because, of course, they make money on these bags. And also, the oil industry is the plastics industry. That is who makes plastic, is the oil industry. So they're well-financed, and they see plastic. Plastic is going up. So in a macro way, the amount of plastic being used and being purchased is going up. And so the oil companies are seeing this as an alternative to selling oil as we're transitioning into a cleaner energy future. And we need to make sure that we don't just continue down that path of more and more single-use things. Like, most people in their own homes are still using plates and cups and forks, right? But you can envision a future where absolutely everything is single-use, where people at home are using single-use things and throwing them away. But part of that is not having a sense of the consequence of it. I mean, we need to be reducing our landfilling, and we need to be using less plastic. And plastic is not good for your body. It's not good for animals or people. And we really don't want to have so much of it everywhere.
And this was ending up in the ocean and affecting some life in the ocean.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen these pictures of like the turtle that's died, and inside it has plastic straws and plastic bag bits and all sorts of things, plastic forks and spoons. I mean, all this, yeah, it really is terrible, the amount of, and the plastic in the ocean, just the big plastic waste heap in the middle of the ocean is a big problem, and we just need to do better.
Now, do you think California doing this will have an impact in the rest of the country? Do you think other people will follow?
Well, yes, other states have done it already, and there are various ways that they do it. But I'll say that one key to the success of this bill was the partnership with the Grocers Association. So the grocers represent the grocery stores, and there are some grocery stores that have already made this decision on their own, like Trader Joe's and Whole Foods. And Trader Joe's, if you go there, you know that they just have a stack of paper bags, and if you don't have your own reusable bag, they'll put it in that bag, and there's not even a discussion, really. And so they've made this choice because they've gone to this because of customer preference. This is what the answer is that I've heard, is that it's customer preference. And so now all the grocery stores, Safeway and Kroger and Vons and all the grocery stores will be doing that. And so it's not as if this is untested, or we don't know if it's going to work, or if customers will accept it, or, it's the direction we're going. And I see this very much like the way we changed our approach to smoking inside. Like, we realized, well, maybe somebody wants to smoke, but it's affecting everybody else. And for the collective good, we need to not have workers and environments where people are smoking. And so laws changed. And it's the same thing with this plastic. I mean, we don't need to have so much single-use plastic.
Was there a reason you jumped on this to do that? Did something spark you to work on this bill?
Well, I've always had the sense that it's unsustainable, the way that we consume things. And I think I partly got this from my grandma, and living in Encinitas and next to the ocean. And, my grandma was affected by the Depression. And so she would wash out the plastic Ziploc bags, and I still do that, and dry them so that you can reuse those, and turning off all the lights, and making sure to use the food in the refrigerator that you buy so that you're not wasting food. So I feel like my personal ethic, and it's reflected in the constituency that I come from too, in Encinitas. I think many people care very deeply about sustainability, is to try to live sustainably with our beautiful planet, and to recognize that we all have a role in that. And we obviously can't, there's no way to avoid plastic completely. I mean, we use it in so many things all the time, but we can do our best, and we can try to set up our systems so that we produce less of it. And unfortunately, right now, with Amazon packaging and with all the things in the grocery store. I mean, it is impossible not to buy plastic, from the deodorant to the packaging that your salad comes in. I mean, it's everywhere. But the extended producer responsibility laws that we have in California will start to kick in, where the industry will come up with its own alternatives and will be responsible for picking up things on the back end. And I think that will fundamentally change the picture. So I personally care about sustainability, and I also feel that it's reflected by the people around me. And when you look at youth, the thing they talk to me about the most is climate change. And climate change and gun violence prevention, those are the two things that youth, I think, are the most activated about. And so they're the ones who are at the plastic bag ban rally with the signs and the turtle and all the things, because they care about this. So I do feel like it's personal, and it's also a reflection of who I represent.
If we were to look forward, how would you see this impacting? Is there going to be more action on plastic bags and plastic in general?
Well, yes. I mean, this doesn't apply to all plastic bags. Like if you go buy clothes at the store, so like a clothing store, you could have a plastic bag. So this is only grocery stores. So there are other types of retail establishments that I think this could move into. But I also just want to work in general on plastic reduction. And I've been working on it even in the state legislature, us walking our own talk. We, in many ways, are not recycling, managing our organic waste with the composting and the landfilling. We are not managing all of that at the level we should be, given how much we care about the environment. So I have been running the subcommittee, and we have these recommendations, which hopefully are being implemented right now, to change the way that the legislature itself operates.
Now, we have been covering recycling, and we know that recycling a lot of times is not happening.
Right.
Can you tell us why, of what's going on with recycling? Even though a lot of Californians actually do the work of collecting the material and putting it into the recycling bin.
Yes, it's really unfortunate, because individual people want to do the right thing and they are separating, they are putting things over and taking them out to their blue bin and not putting it in the landfill. But yeah, recycling is not as successful as you'd hope it would be. And that's why I come back to reduce, reuse, recycle. The first thing is reduce, and then reuse, and the last is recycle. So the idea that we need to have our water in a plastic water bottle. I mean, we should be trying to think about having our water in a cup that we would wash. I mean, like we used to do. There's no reason that we have to have so much single-use plastic everywhere. But recycling, I've really tried to jump into this area and how can we change it? It's tremendously complex, and there are lots of interests. There are lots of waste hauler interests, and who and how is it managed on the back end? We have this also composting that's happening in California. So I feel as if it's something we could do so much better on, but it's not exactly clear where we're going to be able to make that change immediately. I think that focusing on plastic and single-use reduction is someplace that we can make a big difference right away.
Some people might say we have much bigger problems than plastics. And we have the rent issues, the rents are high, the housing cost is high, and we have a lot of problems in California. What are your answers to that?
Well, my answer to that is that we can do many things at the same time. So I care about affordability, and I care about the rents being too high, and insurance prices and access to insurance and gas prices. I mean, there are lots of things to focus on. Homelessness is a top issue. But we can also say, what are some of the things we can do that make a big difference right away? And a lot of changes are incremental. You don't just come in and make sweeping changes to systems, right? Systems change is tough. So to me, this is something that we can do, does make a difference. We have tens of thousands of plastic bags in this state alone every single month. I mean, we can really do something about this source of pollution. So we should be working on those other big things, and I am, but we can also do this.
If you like California Insider and you like to know what's going on in California, make sure to check out Epoch Times. This is a newspaper that started by a group of Chinese Americans because of human rights abuses in China, and now is starting to grow here. Make sure to go to the Epoch Times website and check out the California section, where you can get a lot of fresh perspectives on what's going on in California. Now let's go back to the interview. So last time that this happened, there was a loophole and these plastic bags came back. Do you think there is going to be another one that could come back?
I don't. And interestingly, as we were developing the bill, at first we had a definition of what is a reusable bag because there was a certain amount of how much plastic could be in it, what is the weave, what is it, all this kind of complexity. And what we felt would happen is that we were creating a new loophole. Because if we say it has to be usable for 800 times, or it has to, instead of it being, 300 times, all these different things create a new loophole to try to get around. So in the end, we just eliminated it completely and said only paper bags available when you're buying your groceries. And so there's no discussion anymore about that. And if you think about it, if you're doing a definition of like a backpack or something that is truly reusable, nobody is saying how many times it has to be reused or what woven quality does it have or what's its stitches and this kind of thing, right? Backpacks are reusable. And so you don't even talk about that. And that's ultimately, I think that's a really important distinction, is just to say, we're not going to talk about what is a reusable bag. We're going to just talk about the fact that you get a paper bag.
So when you were working on something like this, which is going to impact an industry, was it hard to work with them? Or did you guys have conversations on the table, or was it difficult?
Well, the plastics industry came in to lobby me, and they, in many ways, their worldview, I just can't and don't agree with. I mean, they're trying to tell me that plastics are great for the planet and that we need to have more, not less of this. And so it's very much this topsy-turvy world where at the end when I was having this conversation, it was just like, I don't think we're going to agree here because I just do not see that I don't believe that. But, everybody's entitled to their opinion, right? And they're lobbyists and that's who they work for. And so it seemed like they were sincere in their belief, but you're just coming at it from completely different positions. But it was really important that the Grocers Association supported this because what they said is, we're just over the paper or plastic dispute. We don't have a problem with just siding with the community and the environmentalists by saying we don't need these plastic bags, let's just simplify it and have paper bags. So I was so grateful that the Grocers Association took that position because what you see is a lot of times if it's business against environment and it's a head-on conflict, business wins. It's not environment that wins. So when you put business and environment together on the same side, but then you have plastics on the other side, then you can win. So it's like that was something that was a really important alliance. And I think the partnerships matter. Who is it that's on the side of your bill and who is it that's against it? Those things really matter in Sacramento. And so making sure that you do a lot of work as a legislator to get partnerships, to get buy-in, to figure out what are the core issues that matter, and then to try to craft those compromises. I mean, this is a lot of times why when you see legislation, it's incremental. There are lots of bills they cut a little bit of red tape, so they make something a little bit easier. Like I had a bill about building accessory dwelling units, making it easier to get through the Coastal Commission. That's a kind of bill that you could say is small, but those things make a big difference when you add them up.
Now, do you have any other thoughts for our audience?
I guess my last thought would be that individual decisions do really matter. We collectively make up the society and the culture that we live in. So making that decision to have a cup of water instead of taking the plastic water bottle, those decisions matter. And remembering to use your reusable bag. People will say, well, how am I supposed to remember? It's like, well, you remember your wallet and your keys. It's deciding that this is something that's going to be part of your habit, that when you get out of the car, you go to the back and get the grocery bags that you have brought with you. That's just part of it. So I think individual actions matter. Collective and systems level change matters a lot. And so those are things that I will continue to work on, but we shouldn't lose hope that what we do individually, that somehow it doesn't matter, because it really does.
Catherine Blakespear, California State Senator, it was great to have you on California Insider.
Well, thank you for interviewing me.
Heidi, it's great to have you on. Welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be back.
We want to talk to you about an important topic, recycling in the state. And one of the things that we are covering, we have had discussion on this plastic ban There's a new law that's just passed that's going to ban plastic bags at grocery stores. One of the reasons that this law is passed is because a lot of these bags are not getting recycled. Can you tell us more about this?
Yes, 10 years ago, California passed a law. I had nothing to do with that bill, that banned certain bags, but it allowed the reusable bags to be used that were plastic, that were thicker. And people thought that that would be enough, and it wasn't. I actually thought it wouldn't be enough. So this is kind of playing out the way I had predicted it. Unfortunately, didn't want to be right on that. But they went back, the people who had sponsored that original bill, and wanted to fix it. So they banned the bags. But unfortunately, some of the businesses in California that started designing bags with recycled content to meet, trying to be more sustainable and are here in California got caught up in this. And now I think they won't be able to sell here. But unfortunately, the loophole still in this bill that I see is that we can still have reusable bags coming from China that are not made to be recycled. We can't recycle them. So what I'm worried about now is we're hurting our California businesses, but we're allowing the importation of non-recyclable bags that are made of a different type of material that feel like more of a fiber, but they're actually plastic that can't be recycled either.
And why is the reason that recycling is not happening in this state? There's a big issue with recycling here, right?
Yes. And with bags, the problem was there was supposed to be an infrastructure developed for bags to be collected at grocery stores, and then they would go back and be recycled into new bags. And while some of that was happening, not nearly enough was happening. And so the companies that are in California were getting frustrated that make the bags out of recycled content bags. They were starting to put their own bag drops out in grocery stores. But I think it was unfortunately too late because the infrastructure just wasn't built up fast enough. And there was just such a distrust in the system that this is the result.
Now, one of the things that we do as consumers, as Californians, a lot of people want to recycle. So most people probably want to recycle these material and they won't throw them away. They will throw them in a recycling bin. But does it not get recycled?
Oh, it does get recycled. The vast majority does get recycled. The media picks up a lot on the stuff that doesn't, and it certainly happens. I'm not going to defend the indefensible. But by and large, materials are getting recycled. Now, we are hearing that air tags a lot, now are being dropped into plastic products, and then they're saying, oh, well, they're not getting to the place that they said they were going to. What we're finding is some of these air tags, because they're metal, are getting pulled out as recyclable metals and never get to the ultimate destination of that plastic, for example. So I just want to give people confidence. Most things are getting recycled, and the system is going to get better and better. It does not change overnight, but by and large, your recycling matters. And it's going to matter more and more as the system gets more and more refined. And I'm very excited. I just got back actually from a conference called Pivot, celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the Recycling Partnership, which is a bunch of big companies that got together and said, we want to improve recycling and we want to give grants to local governments and businesses to recycle more, put the containers out, put the curbside recycling carts out. And they just celebrated their 10-year anniversary. And I have never felt so much excitement in a room to partner, to collaborate, and to make the system work. We now have 5 states that have what we call extended producer responsibility policy for packaging. And that means the manufacturers of the packaging, whether it be brands like Mars or Procter & Gamble, they are all paying into the system to actually help us do better at sorting and recycling and educating the public. So now all of a sudden we're going to have a flood of resources across the country making this entire system better. It's long overdue, but it's coming, and I'm very excited about it.
Now, Heidi, last time we talked to you, there was a dilemma where our recyclable materials from California were getting purchased by Chinese companies, and we ended up shutting down our infrastructure here because the Chinese companies were buying them. But then now we didn't have the infrastructure to recycle what a lot of these materials. Is that change, or is there a new path, or is there new development in this phase?
Great question. There's definitely development here. So there's a lot of momentum around keeping the jobs here. In fact, I was literally just at the ribbon cutting of a new battery manufacturing plant here in Sacramento County. We're hoping to co-locate a recycling facility for batteries nearby this plant sometime in the near future. But California is definitely focused on keeping the jobs here for recycling. Other states are doing that as well. And the states where they already have recycling, like Tennessee, a lot of the southeastern states actually have some of the lowest collection rates of the materials needed to feed those plants. For example, on bottle bills, like we have one in California where we put a deposit on bottles and cans and get that back when we return it. That's only in 10 states. The 10 states that have those bottle bill, or I call them recycling refund programs, are the ones that are feeding those plants. The plants where their states that they're in, their collection rates are sometimes in the teens, where ours are in the 70s. So it's very, very important. And we're now seeing a lot of other states consider producer responsibility or recycling refunds for bottles and cans, but even for packaging.
So it seems like the recyclables that what we are recycling here is going to the other states and actually getting processed there, right?
Sometimes, but sometimes we process them here. We've had multiple businesses here in California. We used to have a lot of paper mills. Of course, a lot of us have lost paper mills. And a lot of that went overseas, that processing. Plastics, we've got in Chico, we've got Pre-Zero. They're a company that, like I said, takes those old plastic bags out of grocery stores and makes it into new bags. I think they're at 35, sometimes higher percentages of recycled content. We have carpet recycling here, carpet pad recycling. We have bottle-to-bottle plants for bottles and plastic bottles. So there's a lot happening here. I've seen, again, film plastic bags, like garbage bags. Those have recycled content that are made here. So there's more and more to come with the new investments that are coming from industries to help us. And paint recycling even, things like paint.
So you have been instrumental in a few of these bills and some of this momentum. Can you tell us more about them?
Thank you. On paint, I'm very proud that we helped pass the first permanent paint stewardship program in the country here in California in 2010. And I just passed the bill, Governor Newsom just signed it, that we sponsored at the National Stewardship Action Council, SB 1143 by Senator Ben Allen from Santa Monica. It started as a big bill that was going to be all household hazardous waste, but we pared it down to where we had agreement, which was to expand the existing paint program for latex and oil paint to not only aerosol cans, but to marine paint, furniture oil, thinners, all kinds of different sorts of paints, arts and crafts paints, so that all of that will go into that paint stewardship program that you can return to paint stores. So we're excited about that. But we would like to get, we also did have a bill on the governor's desk for marine flares, which are very niche. It's just required SOS signal for boaters that explode, and they do not have an end-of-life plan. The governor vetoed that, unfortunately, so I hope we can get that done next year. But we also did pass, and the governor signed an expansion of our carpet program, carpet stewardship, to make that program work better, because that's about 3%, 4% of our landfilled materials, and it's mostly all plastic now. And we do have infrastructure to recycle that carpet here in California with multiple recyclers across the state.
You mentioned that's 3% of the landfill.
3 to 4% just is carpet.
Wow.
1% is diapers.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting what you have large volumes of one thing, Hazardous waste is less than 1%, but none of it is supposed to be going in the landfill, and it's dangerous, and it's ending up in the wrong places. It's affecting the safety of our workers. So that's something I'm really focused on now, and we'll see that legislation come back next year.
And Heidi, you have a strong passion for this. Can you tell us more about it?
It started when I was a kid. I actually collected newspapers with my little red wagon, my red flyer wagon. I'd go around the neighborhood, and my dad and I would put them all in our town and country station wagon and drive them downtown, and they'd weigh the car in and out. We'd empty it, and I'd get paid for every pound of paper. And I don't like litter, and so I've become very, very passionate about treating our earth with respect, this beautiful planet we've been given, to preserve it. But it's also about public health. We're not going to be healthy if we have all these broken microplastics in our water and we're exposed to chemicals that we don't even know are there. So to me, this is a passion project for Earth and for our health.
And do you have any other thoughts for Californians?
I do. I want you to keep hopeful and stay with us and use the programs that exist and really tell your legislators and the people that are in policy-making, decision-making positions that this matters to you, that you want to see a cleaner environment in California. You want to be able to close the loop, and you want to keep the jobs in California. Because when they hear that, they'll work towards that because your vote matters. And it's that time of year.
Heidi Sanborn, Executive Director of National Stewardship Action Council. It was great to have you in California Insider.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great to be here.